Welcome to this Day One Conversation. I'm Peter Wallace, and with me today is Diana Butler Bass. Thanks for talking with us, Diana.
Well, thank you for having me, Peter. I really am glad to be with you today.
Well, we're reading all sorts of studies and research these days which are showing that the church is losing influence in the world today, not only the mainline church, but even the church generally speaking. Younger generations simply have no faith, or they're saying they're spiritual and not religious. But do you have hope for the church? You said you are, that is your mission to bring hope. What needs to happen, do you see?
What I'd like to say about the future is that I am not what I would consider to be a sort of a cockeyed optimist. I recognize there's just enormous challenges in front of Christianity in its certainly in its institutional forms, the denominations, the formal organizations, its theological life. You can go down the list and see that there are troubling indications on all those levels about how successful the church can possibly be in the future. So I recognize all of those things, and I recognize that it will take enormous investment of imagination and a huge willingness to change to begin to address the problems that are facing Christianity on that level. So if you ask me about institutional faith, I can be a realist very easily about this. But I think that the thing that always draws me are not the questions of will Christianity survive in its current institutional form. The answer to that question, I think, is clearly no. But what form will it survive in? Now, that's the question which I am more optimistic about. It is going through some shifts right now, and I think it will survive, and I think it will surprise us as it survives. I think that it is moving away from a belief-centered, sort of systematic, intellectual approach. Even Rick Warren has said this, that the coming Reformation is about deeds and not creeds. And, hey, if Rick Warren says it, I can say it too. But it's going to be more about practices. It's going to be more about Christianity as a way of life. It's going to be, I think, more concerned with the wholeness of human nature, rather than just emphasizing sin versus goodness or the head versus the heart. I think that the coming Christianity is going to try to somehow enfold the complexity of human nature into understanding the stories that we've been gifted with out of sacred tradition. So I think it's going to be, its anthropology, its doctrine of humanity will be rather different as we move ahead. And I also think that its understanding of God, its doctrine of God will be different. And for the last several hundred years at least, and maybe longer, Christians have argued about where God is. Is God in heaven? Is God in everything? Is God? It has become a question. And I think that one of the things that certainly I've been observing is that there's this new interest in the sort of the enfolding of the sacred and the secular. There's a not such a neat division as to where God is. That God is sort of everywhere, and then God is also completely other. And people are very comfortable in talking about the paradoxical nature of God and God's location, and don't see the tensions that previous sort of generations of Christian theologians did. So I think there's a kind of a sacredness within the world that is, and it's not just old-fashioned God is everywhere, but that it's real sacredness, it's real mystery, it's real divine otherness, an encounter with something that's beyond our words, but that it happens in the everyday. And that's a real different conception of God than what we've been working on in the West for the last 300 or 400 years. So I get excited about that. And as soon as you begin to talk about a shift away from beliefs about towards practices, towards the constructing a meaningful way of life, and then you begin to look at these two things that are changing so radically in the Christian imagination, the doctrine of humanity and this understanding of the location of God. Just put those three things together, and I think we're looking at a very different picture of what Christianity could be like in the future. And I think I think these are good changes. I'm willing to lay aside the old arguments over creeds. I don't know how far they got us in understanding what it means to truly be Christian. And I'm also willing to recognize that we have a much more nuanced understanding of human nature, and we need to put that in relationship with divine story and come up with a new pathway for understanding ourselves in God. And I think that the visions of God that are beginning to emerge in Christianity and in Islam and in Buddhism and in Judaism are provocative and challenging and hopeful. And that combination of those three pieces just there makes me not a utopian or not a sort of, like I said, sort of a cockeyed optimist, but a hopeful realist. That Christianity is going to thrive in the future. It will be different, but it has something to say about where we're going. And that makes me stay up at night and lets my imagination fly and be hopeful about the future. It makes me excited about wanting to see where all of this is going to go in 50 or 100 years. And think to myself, gosh, my daughter is going to have some new rendering of this story that's going to be so exciting for her. And it's going to enable her to live and navigate the complexities of the future. And that's really what I want Christianity to be. I don't want it to be an antique little escape mechanism of nostalgia that protects people from the future, but can take them there with meaning and passion and with the love of Christ. And so that's why I'm hopeful, but realistically so.
Diana, thanks for talking with us.
Thank you.